Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're breaking down the fragile new ceasefire between the United States and Iran. We're going to look at the military action that brought us here, the really high-stakes demands on the table, and all the conflicting signals that make this whole situation so tense. Okay, so let's just dive right in with this bombshell statement from President Trump, which really set the stage for everything. This wasn't just talk, it was a line in the sand. It put Iran's nuclear program front and center and became the foundation for the ceasefire we're talking about today. But to really get what this ceasefire means, we have to rewind a bit, back to June 2025. That's when a massive military campaign, codenamed Operation Nighthammer, completely changed the game. And when we talk about Operation Nighthammer, the scale was just immense. I mean, we're talking about 125 U.S. military aircraft. That alone sends a pretty powerful message about air superiority and just how serious this was. Yeah, but it wasn't just about how many planes were in the sky. It was about what they were carrying. The U.S. used its GBU-57 bunker busters, and these things are 14-ton monsters. They're designed for one job: to smash through hardened, buried facilities exactly like Iran's nuclear sites at Fordow and Natanz. And this wasn't some surgical strike on one or two places. This was a huge campaign. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, reported that coalition forces hit over 13,000 targets. They were systematically taking apart Iran's military and industrial capabilities. So you have this massive, sweeping campaign. The big question is, what was the real impact on the ground? Just how badly did Operation Nighthammer hurt Iran's military and, of course, its nuclear program? Well, this chart really gives you a clear picture, at least from the U.S. point of view. According to Pentagon officials, the damage was devastating. They reported that 90% of Iran's weapons factories and its navy were essentially wiped out, along with 80% of its air defense systems. And this quote from the Defense Secretary really drills down on the U.S. perspective. The goal wasn't just to damage Iran's military for the short term. The goal was to completely erase its ability to build advanced weapons for the foreseeable future. Okay, so with Iran's military power seriously degraded, the U.S. had all the leverage. So what did they demand in return for stopping the attacks? What were Washington's non-negotiables? The demands were laser-focused on the nuclear issue. The number one condition: Iran had to give up all of its highly enriched uranium. They also had to help with the cleanup of any leftover nuclear material, what's being called buried nuclear dust. And if they did all that, the U.S. said they'd be willing to talk about lifting some of those crippling sanctions. And the Pentagon's message couldn't have been clearer. There was no ambiguity here. It was basically an ultimatum. You can cooperate with us, or we'll come in and do it for you. There was no third way. So with that incredible amount of pressure, something had to give. And it did. On April 7th, President Trump announced a breakthrough. A 2-week ceasefire had been hammered out. And it was official. Tehran confirmed the deal. And as part of it, they made a really critical concession. They agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz. This is one of the most important waterways for global oil, so that was a huge deal. But if you thought everyone could finally breathe a sigh of relief, well, that feeling didn't last long. Almost immediately, contradictory signals started coming out of Iran, and this fragile peace was tested right from the start. And this slide really showed you the deep split inside Iran's leadership. On one hand, you have the official government trying to de-escalate. But on the other hand, you have the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, a super powerful military force there publicly saying they don't trust the U.S. at all. That's a dangerous divide. And these weren't just empty words. Things started happening on the ground. Iran's own state-run media began reporting an attack on an oil refinery, which was then followed by missile launches at its neighbors. This is all happening just after a ceasefire was announced. And then you get this statement from the IRGC, which is just a chilling reminder of who holds a lot of the power in Iran. They're basically broadcasting to the world that, regardless of what the diplomats agree to, their forces are ready to go. So, where does all this leave us? We have a ceasefire, officially, on paper. But the reality is way more complicated. You have this deep mistrust, and you have powerful groups inside Iran that seem to be actively working against the deal. So the big question is this a real first step toward peace? Or is it just the quiet before the next storm?